My name is Lana LoRusso. I work at Atmosphere TV. I'm sure a lot of you know what it is. No? No one does. Okay. I will tell you what it is before I introduce my friend Brett here, and then it's going to be all about Brett and any other questions that you guys have. But Atmosphere TV is a streaming video platform for businesses. So, for example, our founders, this is how it started. We're at a bar in the middle of the day, and there was Judge Judy on at the bar. And they were like, this is not a good experience. So they started the streaming video platform. It looks like any other streaming platform that you watch, that you use, and it's, you know, like a HBO Max or a Netflix. It looks just like that. We have over 60 content channels. We're in over 55,000 locations, but it's for businesses. Jawan works with me here. Here you go, Jawan. All right, hello. So we're very excited to be here, and I am alongside my friend Brett Richardson, who he is the Senior Media and Marketing Manager at Chobani. I'll give you a little bit of a background just on Brett's personal life, because I think that that's good to know.
I've told her everything.
He did. He's told me everything. Brett and I worked together for many, many years ago when he worked on YouTube, and now he's over at Chobani, and we'll talk a little bit about how he made that switch over. But he currently lives in Brooklyn. He got married last March. He is obsessed with riding his bike around the city and cooking and finding all good restaurants. So I'm going to
nailed it.
What is your favorite restaurant?
Havin' Mar is great, where we'll be tonight.
Okay.
One of my favorite spots though is Bernie's in Greenpoint, right down the street from me.
Okay.
It's like if Chili's was actually a good restaurant.
Oh God.
No, sorry, I hope no one from Chili's is here, but.
So you also do a lot of charitable work as well, which is interesting. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I guess if I could leave this collective group with one thing, we're all smart people. We all have a lot to offer, and we should all volunteer our time. So I've been connected to a couple of organizations to consult from a marketing perspective. One is Popcorn for the People, which employs people on the autistic spectrum and gives about 50 to 60 individuals a steady income, allows them to actually have a true meaningful employment opportunity. And I've been able to assist their marketing team of one in all things search, all things influencers, partnerships, and it's been really enjoyable for me to kind of help educate folks and also do some additional good in the world. I'm also connected into the AHRC, which does a bunch of different programs for people on the autistic spectrum in New York City. And yeah, again, that's my one plea to you all is take some of the time out of your guys' month or year and volunteer it.
That's great. Switching gears just a little bit, why don't you talk a little bit about what your role is at Chobani and then your journey to get there?
Yeah, sure. I can share my journey because it's like a lot of people in marketing, non-linear and in some ways doesn't make any sense either. So I graduated from Cornell, shout out to Cornell University, 10 years ago, and I studied environmental and resource economics, which I knew I didn't want to do in my real life. So I looked at, what I enjoyed during school. One of the classes that I enjoyed was marketing. I didn't really remember too much from that marketing class. But I remember it being interesting and the right balance of right brain versus left brain. My friend at the time introduced me to this cool company that she was working at called Essence, which is now currently located on the 14th floor here in this building, and worked at Essence for a number of years in account management, client service roles, ultimately leading a team of media channel experts sitting in a client-facing role and working with the product managers at YouTube and at Google to bring to life their marketing campaigns. I was there for 7 years, which ended up making me a dinosaur in the agency, and decided that I wanted to kind of sit on the other side of the table and go brand side. So was able to find this job at Chobani, where I've been now for the last 2.5 years. And my role is as the senior media and marketing manager, which fundamentally means that I'm responsible for our media strategy, how we invest our dollars across brand, shopper, et cetera. And then I also manage some of our digital ecosystem, so our website as well as our email marketing.
That's great. See, don't let it fool you. Going to a good college really helps. I went to Fairfield. Somebody told me go be a media planner. They're a dime a dozen, and then now I'm in sales. So here I am. Not totally different from your way to go. But talk a little bit about the culture at Chobani. Like, it's located in Soho, which I thought was really cool. We talk about culture a lot. Just, I think in the industry, it's ever since COVID, culture has really changed. For those of us who have been in the business for a long time, you could say, "Oh, how do you know that person? We used to work together. How did I meet my spouse? We used to work together. How did you meet your friend? We used to work together." But now that culture has changed because a lot of people are on Zoom. You don't have those super close relationships. Even at Atmosphere, we're a new company and we're growing. So how do we keep our culture the same that it is now until when it gets big? And what is that culture? So, you talked a lot about the culture of Chobani when we were on the phone. I found that interesting. If you could just kind of fill the crowd in.
Yeah, absolutely. So our food scientists are obsessed with culture as we transform dairy into our yogurt product. Haha, yogurt pun. That bad one. But we think about culture in a few ways at Chobani. And I'm very happy to say it's such a great company to work for. And I think it really comes from ultimately our brand values and what we want to do in the world. We bring to life great products. We're a food maker that is fundamentally trying to use food for a force for good. And that really pervades through in my day-to-day and my peers' day-to-day, and ultimately how we want to address problems. And also from a marketing perspective, bring to life our company. Over the past couple of years, I joined during COVID, and it was very much a kind of forced culture, so to speak, of our leadership recognizing that we all needed to be playing in the same play space, in the same sandbox, so to speak, to understand each other's roles, understand each other as individuals, and ultimately allow our kind of collaboration and candidness in many ways to ultimately put forth great work. So I think, one of the main kind of areas of our culture that I think I'm quite proud of and that I think we do a great job of is ultimately collaboration and candidness and also not being afraid to ask questions, which I think is really important, especially with someone in media or marketing. Some good examples of that are when I joined a couple of years ago, I looked in. As someone who was managing retail search media, I recognized that as I was supporting these pure play e-com partners, that we didn't really have an e-commerce strategy overall. So I was able to go to my CMO at the time and say, "What's up with our e-com strategy?" And the short answer, blunt answer was, "We don't have one. Do you want to figure it out?" And from there, I've been able to, kind of work to assemble a task force and work cross-functionally with our category development team, our insights team, and bring to life kind of how we want to show up across our sales organization, across marketing objectives, how we utilize data and insights to fuel organic and paid efforts on retailer platforms, and that's all been very with arms open across our leadership, which is really exciting and very empowering in many ways.
That's great, and you're talking about that strategy of kind of building up this area of the company, and now speaking of like that strategy and where the company is now, and everybody's talking about what the marketplace is like and the potential recession, or are we having one, are we not having one? Talk a little bit about how you maneuver through this. And before you do, I just want to tell you, I was out to lunch today with a client, and they said that they worked for a specific agency, and they did a poll of 3 things amongst consumers that they did not want to give up during a recession. 3 things. Alcohol was number 1. Number 2 was streaming. Number 3 was travel. So how do you Because again, the recession, you'd think they'd want to give up travel, but nobody wants to give up travel now that nobody's been traveling, and now all of a sudden we can. So how do you kind of combat that? What is a strategy? How do you stand out, and what do you do in this type of market?
So I think I can use this opportunity to say that Chobani's coming out with their own streaming platform. I mean, so in the CPG world, Chobani is actually very fortunate in the sense that amongst all the vicissitudes of the past couple of years with supply chain issues, inflation, et cetera, labor shortages, breakfast is a staple for everybody. And Chobani also has developed in our 16 years as a company a lot of equity and trust in the space. So we've been very fortunate to navigate with a great supply strategy, with ultimately a great pricing strategy as well that has been on par with but not exceeding, and ultimately forcing consumers to think twice about purchasing our products. But I think as we look at our total company strategy and how that adapts over to the marketing space, we're really trying to think consumer centric in everything that we do. So as we develop products, and as we have developed products over the past 5-6 years and moved out of just Greek yogurt, which was our entire company, our entire vision, we've really looked at what do our consumers actually want, what will provide value to them. And that's manifested in a few ways. One is new products. So we now have an oat milk. We have coffee creamers, as well as a cold brew. And we've seen some great success there with just people recognizing the Chobani brand, understanding that equals quality, and being able to, appropriately trial those products and stick around. We've also looked at our innovation in the product space across the kind of functional benefits. So what I mean by that is the addition of positives into our products or the removal of negatives. So an on-the-go format, a yogurt drink, additional protein in our products, such as our Chobani Complete product. The subtraction of things like sugar, like lower fat, things like that ultimately allow us to speak to multiple consumers and meet their changing needs and how they've evolved over the past few years. And our marketing strategy very much so dovetails off of that, where we're really interested in being audience first in our planning. We're really keen on meeting them in any moment of the day, whether it be on the go, shopping moments, lean back environments where they're watching on a big screen, et cetera. And we've seen a lot of success in being able to kind of move from what used to be just kind of getting as many eyeballs as possible to now having a more quality engagement with consumers, and ultimately drive them to trial of our new products, drive them to be loyal customers. I think the on-the-go piece is interesting, and it's kind of a slightly different mindset from like a traditional channel view of media. I'm curious, Lana, on your thoughts as Atmosphere kind of lives in that almost on-the-go moment. How do you guys think about your offering to marketers?
I mean, our offering to marketers is trying to get their attention, right? You're in a bar or a restaurant or a hair salon, and you just want their experience to be a good experience, right? How many times have you been getting your hair done or at a spa and, you're looking at the TV and it is like, I was there the other day and there was like a horror film playing and I was like, why am I getting my hair cut watching this horror film? So like, you want uplifting content that people kind of take a look at and notice. And, our dwell time in these places is 80 minutes, that's the average dwell time, so that's what stands us out from our competitors. So it's creating good content that is uplifting and that will get people's attention. That's kind of how we get those people on the go.
With 80 minutes of dwell time, we should consider opening up some Chobani cafes at some of those locations.
That's, let's talk about that because that could be after this. What do you think is, in this market, are you advertising more, less? It depends. Like, how do you hit consumers?
Yeah, so we've been over the past couple of years, really leaning into being efficient as a marketing team and really looking at performance marketing as a whole. So we have an outsized increase in shopper marketing efforts, which I think has a number of great benefits to us as a company. One is the data that the retail media networks are providing us and allowing us to optimize against and report on. Two being ultimately the ability for us to, as a sales organization, sell in additional product, get more shelf space in physical stores, and ultimately unlock kind of better return on investment than traditionally we were able to use through like a slotting fee, which is kind of just a sunk cost. So yeah, retail media has been a huge endeavor for us. It's definitely been somewhat of a Wild West in many cases, given that everyone and their parents are opening up a retail media network now. Sometimes the plethora of choice is a little bit daunting, and there's definitely not parity amongst all of our grocers, but we reach out to them as peers, and we want to, as a company, provide them with kind of thought leadership and strategic guidance in their retail media offerings so that we can ultimately build loyalty together. The other area that we've really doubled down on is ultimately in line with our performance kind of mindset, and that is with search. So Google search has been shown surprisingly, dare I say, to be an outsized incremental revenue driver for us, which is really great. And to be able to have that data to support increased investment over the past couple of years has allowed us to not only provide us with additional growth in our consumer base, but also we've seen that it's been able to support us from an awareness perspective, which kind of blew my mind as someone who has always thought of search as just very bottom funnel.
Interesting. What sort of, you work with a lot of different vendors, and you said Google. What defines a good campaign for you? What is your source of measurement? What really defines a good campaign when working with vendors?
Yeah, so I think a good campaign can fall into a number of different buckets and how you validate success. Ultimately, we want to, as a marketing team, be connecting into our commercial outcomes as a company. So CPG, sell more, get more loyalty, get better household penetration. And that's very much so a North Star for our total commercial team, not just marketing. We also look at what we're trying to change in our consumer base for any given campaign objective, right? So perhaps looking a step down at more attitudinal metrics. Are we growing trust with our consumers? Are we growing awareness of a new product in market? And ultimately, that's kind of, I think, more so tied to a marketing dollar spent. I think the other areas that are maybe interesting and a bit softer are things around, are we driving excitement internally? That's maybe a dark art of marketing, but I think it's sometimes really important. Are we able to get people excited about what we're doing on a day-to-day basis? Are we ultimately, having our founder, our president, come downstairs and say hello and be like, my kids saw this on TikTok and it looks awesome. Nice job. There's kind of equity that can be built there that is, I think, not tied to a commercial goal, but certainly tied to relationships, collaboration, and also culture to a lesser degree.
How often does that happen?
I'm always surprised when it happens, but the TikTok example that I just shared, our past president, who's no longer at Chobani, but we were one of the first 5 advertisers to do a hashtag challenge with TikTok, which is a very high impact unit. And the day that happened, our president walked in and said, my kid was so happy that he saw Chobani on his phone. Can we do more of this? Tell me more about it. And it opened a door, so to speak. But what I think also less about like executive stakeholder management and more about like total company culture. We've been very successful in programs and initiatives where we're working to showcase our brand values and what we stand for as a company outside of just our great quality products. Right. So to be able to have our comms team engaged with us, our corporate affairs team, working with our people team sometimes for hiring efforts and using media as a tool to drive applications. All of these things kind of are softer, not tied to commercial goals, but allowing marketing to really shine within the organization.
Do you have an example of one of your favorite campaigns ever?
I think I'm quite proud of our Zero Sugar campaign. So our Zero Sugar product is a no added sugar yogurt. It was launched in May of 2021 and was a rather unique innovation in the yogurt space. And we had a head start against our peers in kind of offering a 70 calorie no added sugar cup of yogurt, which unlocks benefits to people who have diabetes, which unlocks people who are monitoring and counting their sugar bank on a day-to-day basis. And we approached that campaign back in 2021 with a 3-year outlook. So we were actually looking at what can we be doing month one, what can we be doing 6 months in, a year in, and how can we monitor from a commercial perspective the performance of these different campaign levers that we'd be pulling over time. So it's been really fun. Like we're right now in a social only program supporting Zero Sugar on Pinterest, on Meta properties, and it's kind of like one of the penultimate chapters of this campaign, but it's been a really nice journey to think long term about how we're spending dollars and supporting the product, and also the product has just been performing admirably well. So it's been good to help fuel that fire.
That's great. Then this is a selfish question because you named Pinterest and Meta. And how does a new company get your attention, like a new vendor? How do they, spark your interest?
Yeah, so I mean, as someone in media, like I love having conversations with vendors, with other marketers, right? I think anyone in marketing needs to have a pulse on what is occurring, how people are and consumers are engaging with media, period. And as we at Chobani think through new vendor evaluation, we're ultimately looking at a few things. One is how can they bring to life our creative and very much so have the right canvas for our marketing tenets, our products to really shine. We're also very keen on data and analytics available. So how can we not just monitor performance in flight, but also look at end results and, again, connect that back to perhaps campaign goals, commercial goals, et cetera. We work really closely with our Horizon Media team, just as a small shout out, but they've done an excellent job of producing partner scorecards that we regularly use to evaluate partners against a number of different criteria. Those two that I just mentioned, but also more fundamental media buying metrics and areas of consideration like reach, frequency, targeting, et cetera. And it's allowed us to paint a picture that we can ultimately compare very apples to apples, other vendors in the space. And yeah, it's been quite successful. We definitely have a test and learn mindset at Chobani. We want to be testing new channels, pushing the boundaries, try to be the first, realistically, maybe like the fourth or fifth advertiser to do something. And yeah, it's all I think about just having ongoing dialogues, being able to have trust in your partners and ultimately get back, the right kind of nuts and bolts that an offering has from a vendor so that you can make an educated decision on what works best.
That's great. Is there any other brands out there that you look at and say, I wish we would have tried that, or I wish we would have done that?
I think it's easy to look at some of the brands out there that really lean into their brand marketing, and I'm a bit envious of those who don't need to be putting a product in front of a consumer's face and still be able to sell product. The Nikes of the world, right? But I think I'm also impressed by companies that really think 360 through their non-paid media assets and how they leverage them, website, organic social, et cetera, and ultimately use paid as kind of a buffer there. So as someone who loves food, Milk Bar I'm a fan of. Period. But I think that they do a really great job of thinking through how they speak to consumers across their different touch points and use paid as kind of a glue almost that ties everything together and helps move consumers from top of funnel awareness down to purchase and re-engagement and perhaps repeat purchase as well.
How many of your marketing decisions are driven by your founder's kid? Just kidding.
Kids, plural.
Kids.
Yeah,
no, I'm only teasing you.
We haven't done any Coco Melon advertising, but that very well might be in our pipeline.
I have twin girls that are 15, and as they say, like, if it's not on TikTok as a trend, Mom, it's not cool. So that's good that Chobani was on TikTok. So now, just right now, is there something that you are working on that you're really excited about coming up that we should look out for?
Yeah, so it's Media Buying Summit, but I'm going to plug non-media work. We're rolling out a new website, which is really exciting. It's going to come to fruition and be launched in mid-May. So I'm excited to roll this out for a number of different reasons. One is that it's just allowing for more interactivity, a more immersive experience on our site, not just showing product and some of the kind of key information about each product. But we're also going to be able to offer our consumers a little bit more of a direct to e-com buy flow. And with that, I'm very excited about the ability to capture consumers' first-party data, zero-party data, and then use that in other facets of our marketing plan. So paid media will be one of those areas where we look to segment audiences and ultimately hopefully see some great results and start to get people into a nice little kind of subscription rhythm almost.
That's great. When is that launching? Sorry if I missed that.
It should be mid-May.
Oh, soon.
Yes.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Launched on TikTok too? Just kidding.
No TikTok there. Although the rise of search on TikTok is certainly making us think like, should we? How do we rethink our content that lives everywhere, and how that pervades from TikTok maybe to something like a website, perhaps.
Right. Are we doing questions now? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's get the box out.
Oh.
You mentioned partners' scorecards before. Like, how do you approach deciding, or what factors go into deciding what you're going to do internally versus what you're going to work with an agency on? And that could be like creative or media buying or anything else.
Yeah, I think cost is a major contributor to how we think about resourcing, and we always try to keep things in-house if we can. The external stakeholders and agencies that we work with, we tend to want to have long-term relationships with them, and ultimately make sure that we are building a relationship and one that allows us to really drive forward each other's agendas together. Commercial focus as well. So I want to make sure that everyone who we're working with, not just agencies, but media partners, are all aligned to what we're trying to achieve, both short term in a given campaign and long term, looking a year or two out, so that they're very ingrained in what we do and understand how we're thinking through our different challenges and how we'll bring things to life.
Thanks. Hi, Jason Schulweis from MindBody Green. When you're thinking about the brand aspects, like the best brand aspects for Chobani, have you seen a better audience resonance with the founder story, the culture, taste, the health aspects? How do those kind of rank in terms of what moves the needle the most for the brand?
Yeah, so I don't want to rank, but what I will say is that our founder is our secret sauce. For those who don't know, our founder has a tremendous story, Hamdi Ulukaya, and he's been able to build such a great company and stand for not just what a CEO and a business should be doing, in its products, but also for what they stand for in their local communities, in the greater world, and environmental issues, as well as things like cause batches and support against local communities, environmentalism, military veterans, etc. So he's been certainly one of the best storytellers of our brand, but we also want to evolve our organization to have other areas, other voices come up, and that's not just through like a marketing play, but that's also through how we think about our products and what we're developing there. It's through how we engage in our local communities around our plants in upstate New York and out in Twin Falls, Idaho, and all of that in service of hopefully, again, just showing and communicating the great quality of our brand that people know about, but they don't know about.
That was awesome.
Well,
Thanks.
I stumbled there a little
Thank
bit,
you.
but that's
No,
okay.
you're good. That was great. I think we're moving on to the last one here, but I want to give a round of applause to these two.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.